Your research focuses on ecosystem tipping points. What are they?
So a tipping point is a sudden, abrupt, often dramatic change in the way that a natural ecosystem functions. What that means is often we'll be surprised when we pass a tipping point because we obviously haven't been expecting it.
How do tipping points affect us?
Let's think about a fish species that we love to eat and is supporting a lot of economic activity and is maybe also doing something important within that ecosystem. So all of a sudden we lose that fish species and now there are no jobs, there are no incomes, the changes in the ecology of the ocean are going to be profound because we've lost this important species in the system.
That makes me relate tipping points to the straw that broke the camel's back. Are there other examples? What else can cause them besides overfishing?
So one good example of a tipping point in a marine context are the creations of dead zones in our coastal oceans. There are two important processes when you think about a dead zone. What happens in a dead zone is that too much material is decomposing on the seafloor, sucking up all the oxygen and suffocating all the animals. So when I'm talking about organic materials, I just want to make myself clear here with a couple of examples. So we have waste material that runs off the land. That can be sewage, it can be coming out of dairy sheds and pig farms. We have nutrients and fertilizer that come off the land as a consequence of us perhaps putting a bit too much on in the first place, and it runs off into the rivers and streams and enters our coastal zone. Those materials fuel plant production within the coastal ocean, and that plant production ends up sinking on the seafloor as organic material. So if we have a very layered water mass where the parts of the water mass don't mix very well, then that's going to increase the probability of suffocating the seafloor. So the cumulative effect of those two things together is such that we're much more likely to see those dead zones when both of those phenomena come into play.
It sounds like we should avoid tipping points. What can we do about it?
So simply put, in terms of what we can do about this, we can deplete the resources less, not use them to the max. We can reserve some areas and not use them at all. We might have policies that support the creation of marine reserves and support the implementation of marine spatial planning practices that allow us to decrease some of the stresses, and we can have a smaller footprint on what's happening around us. Now, what that means to an individual is use less resources, don't create more waste than you need to, but also start to think about the world you live in and the policies and the actions you can take.
Besides individual actions, what can people do collectively?
We're seeing that today. When we're recording this, there are school kids on the streets complaining about climate change and protesting about climate change. And they're asking for radical change because what we're doing is not good enough. They're not concerned about short economic benefits. They're concerned about having a future so that they can get to live for the next 60 to 80 years on a planet that will support human life. So we're thinking about climate change. Our oceans are intimately connected to how our climate works. As well as thinking about climate change policy, we need to be thinking about how are we interacting with our oceans and how are we using them, but also we need to think about maintaining the biodiversity and the functioning of these systems, and we need to have a rethink about our oceans policy that allows us to facilitate the continuations of life in our oceans.